On this week's Carrier App, we speak with Hyla Mobile on the device trading market, what it sees in terms of trends as we move through 2017, and how it views the flow through of used devices into emerging markets. All right, well, thanks for joining us on this week's Carrier Wrap. I'm your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief here at RCR Wireless News. And this week we are joined by Bijou Nair, who's the CEO of Hyla Mobile, to talk a bit about the company and its work in the device traded market. So, hey, Bijou, thanks for joining us this week. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. It's a real pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me.
Very good, very good. Let's start off with, for those that don't know much about you guys, maybe a little background on the company, maybe an overview of Hyla Mobile, kind of what you guys do in terms of your market position, maybe some founding information as well that might get our viewers kind of set up a little bit there.
Yeah, so Hyla started back in 2009, originally named as E-Recycling Corp, and venture-backed private company. And the premise of the company back then, and it continues to be the same today, is that there's a lot of residual value left in the devices that people are holding on to, especially the mobile devices. So electronic recycling has been pretty popular around the world throughout, but mobile devices are kind of unique because people change those out more frequently than the typical electronic devices. And given how the US market used to be, where a $200 device was subsidized down to zero by the carriers, and then people would get them for free in exchange for a 2-year contract. So after 12 months, 18 months, or even after 24 months when they were upgrading, they still had devices that they would hold on to. I'm going to use this sometime in the future, but technology moves on and people now end up using it. So back in those days, it was basically focusing on the devices that people were keeping in their drawers for a rainy day. And then one day, you're doing spring cleaning and you're taking all of these things out and you're tossing them in the garbage, and they used to end up in landfill. Obviously, that has changed over the years. And roughly 3.5 years ago, we renamed the company to Hyla Mobile to give it a little more emphasis on the mobile device capabilities and the mobile device repurposing. And the idea was still the same, that there is a lot of residual value left in the devices that people are holding on to, more so now than it used to be, 7, 8 years ago, because these devices are much more expensive. And these devices, because of apps and other reasons, tend to lose their horsepower much more quickly. However, an 18-month-old device or a 2-year-old device from the United States is still a very valid device overseas and can be reused in many, many different sectors that we will talk about during this interview. So that's what Hyla does. We work with some of the largest carriers here in the United States, with AT&T, with Verizon. We work with TELUS in Canada. We work with some of the tier 1 retail players like Best Buy. Mm-hmm. We work with some of the emerging players like Google and Facebook. And with the same premise that we help them collect the devices from their subscriber base, process them effectively, get them data cleared, and then help dispose of these devices in one of the many different ways that we can help them do that.
Okay, makes sense. Now, I guess how much of the logistics or the back office do you guys actually do? Is it because I'm guessing there's a lot of steps involved in all of this. Do you guys handle pretty much once the customer drops off the phone, you get it from whatever the supplier is? Do you guys then do the whole process till it's sent off to wherever it needs to go then?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dan. So let me walk you through what the process looks like. So we are actually a technology company. So we make the technology and services available to our customers that enable them to do this activity. So there are 3-step process to this, about 4-step process. So the 3-step, let me just describe the process. So the first one is collection of the device itself. So we have a piece of software that is integrated to the point of sale of all of our customers, carriers, retailers, online channels, because customers upgrade in many different ways. They may walk into a store, they may go online and say, I want to upgrade, and they can. So we allow them to collect the devices no matter what. If you're in a store, it's fairly straightforward. The salesperson will ask you, would you like to trade in your device? And then they will go into the system. And at that point, it's our system that is providing them with all the information, the value of that device, checking on the condition of that device, etc. If you're doing it from home online, we will allow them to request a kit, which is basically an insulated bag that they get in the mail. They can just slip the device in there, tape it, just seal it, put a label on it, and it'll show up in our processing center in Nashville. And so that's the collection part of it. Once these devices come to our facility, there's a processing element to it. And processing has multiple steps. One is just the receiving of it. And the receiving involves a little bit of a fraud checking. Because keep in mind, we are in a retail environment. So a lot of things, intentional or unintentional, can go wrong. So somebody turned in a BlackBerry, and the salesperson somehow recorded it as an iPhone 6. There's a huge difference in value between those two. And so when we receive the device, we scan it, and we check to see that the salesperson entered an iPhone 6 and we received a BlackBerry. So we will flag that as a discrepancy and make the adjustment associated with that. And over a period of time, we monitor it and manage it through our analytics to see if there is any fraud going on in some part of the industry. And we flag that to our customers so that they can take appropriate action associated with that. We also check to see at the point of sale if it's a lost and stolen device. Because if it's a lost and stolen device, then we don't want to perform any transaction with it and take on the liability for our customers for that. Then the next step is we have automated systems to which it can be plugged in. We process them. We test these devices for all their functionality. Most importantly, we data clear them because we don't let a single device leave our facility without all of customers' data erased from there.
Interesting.
So it's a very important part of the processing. Because you want your family pictures, your contacts, your applications with stored information in there, they're going out into somebody's hands. So we test it, we certify that it's data cleared, and then we prepare it for sale. And the processing gives it a grade. So for simplicity's sake, we'll call them A grade, which are the best devices. Then there's B grade with slight imperfections in them. C grade with maybe a broken glass but fully functional, and then there is repair and recycle grade. Repair grade are devices that just don't power on, so there is no way for us to validate whether it's data cleared or not, and we don't take it for granted. So we send them away for repair, so at the very least it can be powered on, so we can test them to see if there is content on there and can be data cleared. And then the recycle devices are devices that we deem that really don't have any commercial value, but we have a responsibility to recycle them according to some standards that we adhere to, so that it's not just thrown in some place. We only give it to recyclers who are also certified according to those standards, and they are audited, we are audited, so we know that somebody's not taking out all the electronic parts and throwing the rest in garbage. Because if they do that, they get audited and they can lose their certification.
Got it.
That it's done. So that's the grading part of it. And that prepares it for disposition. And disposition can happen in many different ways. Sometimes our customers want those devices back because they deal with a lot of warranty obligations and repair and insurance obligations. So if you're a customer of AT&T and if you have an insurance plan with them and your iPhone 6s broke, when you contact them, they will make a like device available to you. It may not be your exact same device. It may not even be the same color, but they'll try to give you a 64 gig device if you have one. If they have the same color available, they'll do that. Obviously, the insurance industry is always looking to service that with a like used device that is refurbished, because a brand new device is very, very expensive to fix that with. And then the vast majority of the devices, 70 to 80% of them, get disposed of in the wholesale market into emerging world. And then from there, it's get dissipated into many other countries where these devices get a second or a third life.
Interesting. Very interesting how it all kind of plays out there. It's amazing, you're right, all the steps involved. And obviously the clearing of the device, the security aspect is always an important part of that. It's good to hear that, whenever you do turn on a device, that if it does go through your system, obviously it gets all wiped off, which is a little comfort for a lot of people to know that. So
yeah, 7 years with 0 data leaks. That's a good track record we like to maintain. Yeah,
that's very good indeed. I'm sure you look at so many devices too. That's a lot of numbers coming through you guys too. So impressive number there. But I guess as you look at the market in general, I mean, like you said, the U.S. market has changed quite a bit over the past few years. I mean, it used to be that, like you said, it was a kind of a device subsidy kind of market where people would get the devices for zero basically, and they didn't see much value in the device. So like you said, they would just stick it in the drawer, leave it there forever, and eventually, they would just throw it away. It does seem like nowadays that it's kind of changed to where people are paying, somewhat through, the full value of their device today. So they realize that there is a lot of value involved in this. I'm guessing, you guys, that change has been pretty dramatic, and it's probably been something that's kind of altered, I'm guessing, kind of your operations a little bit, I would think.
Yeah, that is a great point, Dan. And I equate this to sort of the automobile industry, right? In the automobile industry, it was very common. You don't just throw away your old car. You try to trade it in, or you hand it down to somebody else in the family who's just starting to drive. So the phones, tablets, those type of devices are going that path itself, because 12 to 24 months is the time frame when the device stops being as useful, because in the developed economies, we rely on apps a lot. We are always upgrading to the latest, greatest operating system, and the hardware was made for a certain version of an operating system 18 months, 24 months ago. So these devices tend to slow down, and it's not good enough for our daily use. People like you and I who rely on our devices on a regular basis, when we click on it, we want it to pop up immediately. We want it to show us the appointment immediately. If you're searching for navigation, we want it to be updating very, very currently. But that starts to get cumbersome as more devices and more operating systems get upgraded on there.
Yeah.
So people are upgrading. The upgrade cycles have gone longer. It used to be somewhere around 20 months. It shrunk to 12 to 18 months. Now it's going back up to that 18 to 24 month period. But there's very interesting dynamic, because, as you mentioned, most of subsidy has gone away from the North American carrier market. So carriers are enticing the customers to come in and pay an equal monthly installment sort of situation, depending on what your needs are. You can get a 12-month plan, 18-month plan, or a 24-month plan. And people sign up for that. And oftentimes, in order to get a valuable customer enticed to come back and upgrade in a system, in a periodic manner, most of these stakeholders, carriers, retailers, OEMs, and others will send you an early upgrade invitation. So you come back in, they might forego the balance, you bring the device back and you turn the device in and get a new device. But that device still has a lot of value. So it's a good deal for you as a consumer. It's a good deal for the carrier, because they get to retain the customer. The customer acquisition cost goes further down. They have use for these devices, because these devices can be used in so many different ways once it comes back. And we haven't even touched on the IoT side of things, where these devices are being used quite a bit. And the gig economy side of things, where Uber drivers are buying more of these used devices. Uber is buying more of these devices. And then the emerging market play in itself. So they get to use these devices and monetize them in some way. The whole device ecosystem benefits, because repairers, parts, people who are interested in parts, they all stand to benefit from the repurposing of the devices in the economy. And then ultimately, somebody in an emerging world benefits from it, because an 18-month-old, 2-year-old device from the United States is still a very viable device, where this is actually used for real-life applications. Countries like India, where the nearest doctor might be 50, 60 kilometers away. So remote medicine is a big way of how they are treating people. So you can't do that with a low-resolution camera that the consumer has. So these type of devices with high-end cameras, but with limited CPU capabilities, are still very useful. Somebody's got a skin rash, and a dermatologist, a specialist like that, is even further away than the regular doctor. So they can actually, through telemedicine, show the camera on the rash, and the doctor can determine remotely that, okay, this is just a skin rash from poison ivy or something like that, as opposed to this potentially person developing, God forbid, skin cancer or something like that. So these are life-changing devices over in those markets. And then ultimately the environment stands to benefit, because we are reducing the amount of manufacturing that is being done there, reusing these devices, less rare earth metals are coming out of that. So the US market has changed quite a bit, but it's adapting really nicely to these new emerging trends associated with repurposing these devices.
Yeah, that's a good topic, because it does seem like that the emerging markets have always been an interesting dynamic with the US, with the more developed markets, I should say. And it is kind of that flow-through model, which I think we've heard about for years and years, but it seems like nowadays it has become so much more important, because I think we've always heard the stories about a lot of people in these developing markets. their first, connection to the internet or to a computer is going to be probably through a mobile device.
Yep.
And the device is nowadays becoming so powerful that it actually kind of makes sense. I mean, that might be their only device that they ever use their whole lives that connects to the internet. And so it does seem like getting those devices through the market into the hands of people who this has become a life-saving device for them, or part of their life that they never even thought possible. It's such more of an important part of the process now than probably 5, 10, 15 years ago when it was more of a feature phone or something like that didn't maybe have as much power or connectivity options to it, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dan, it's a shocking statistic that we have been following for the last few years. Little over 60% of humanity actually has no access to internet. And when they start to get access to internet, it's not through cable, it's not through fiber, because infrastructure doesn't exist. Mobile has leapfrogged. And in many emerging countries in Africa, in countries like India, remote parts of China, government is putting a big push forward to make rural connectivity a big priority. So bringing LTE access, or at least 3G access to the rural communities, so that they can use that to better their lives, whether it is for a farmer trying to find out what is the best outlet for their crops, or healthcare, or a fisherman trying to find out what the conditions in the ocean are before he or she goes out for their trade. Yeah. So it is mobile, and these use devices are playing an increasingly bigger role in that. To give you an example, one of our customers is Facebook, and Facebook has a device recycling program. And a lot of people wonder why is Facebook in that? Why is Facebook buying back devices in US? One of the big reasons is they have a program that is focused in the emerging world and bringing connectivity to the emerging world. And they recognize that mobile is a big way of doing that. So by collecting devices that are reusable here in the United States, and us repurposing those devices, and on a project-by-project basis, making it available to those markets where they're actually focused on this Facebook Free Basics program, is a great way of getting involved in that economy, changing somebody's life out there. And ultimately, Facebook recognizes that until the 60+% of humanity that doesn't have access to internet doesn't get onto the internet, it doesn't stand to benefit Facebook. So they're making a conscious effort to making sure that some free services are available for them that is essential for their living, and ultimately with the hope that they all become Facebook users.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great project. That makes a lot of sense. And getting those phones out there, again, they're sitting in people's drawers anyway. So if they can actually help somebody, that's a great way to do it. So that makes a lot of sense there. Well, I guess maybe coming back to the U.S. market a little bit, I guess as you look at, we come out of the holidays here, obviously people are always shopping for new devices. Holidays bring out everybody to kind of look at the newest things that are out there. Was there anything that kind of came out of the past, 6, 12 weeks that maybe surprised you in terms of, what you saw kind of coming into your flow of devices coming into the market? Or was it a pretty traditional, pretty regular type of season, I guess, for you guys?
Yeah, we saw an uptick in trade in general, okay. Roughly about 25-28% uptick in the market. So when we talk to our customers, they are still seeing trade-in or device bring back as pretty much a default mechanism that is used in the industry. So that's pretty common. And they're looking at it as a standard way of doing business, both for their existing customers as well as switching customers. So you see commercials all the time with competing carriers saying if you switch over to my service, we'll give you $650 for a device. And obviously it's a customer acquisition cost. They understand that that's the money that they're spending to get the customer on board, and they bring and trade in their old device. So we saw roughly about 25-28% uptick in the market, probably related to the fact that this was a non-S iPhone. It was iPhone 7. Yep, exactly. So it was not a gap release phone. And however, we did notice that it was not typical to a year when Apple makes a non-S phone release happen. And I think there is a lot of built-up anticipation around the 10-year anniversary this year, and a lot of the features that are anticipated in iPhone 8 that is going to come out. Yeah. So But we did see an uptake, and we are expecting, well, for planning purposes, we are planning a similar type of a year. But obviously, as we get to late spring, early summer, we'll start to get more forecasts and better understanding from our customers as to what they're planning for the iPhone 8 launch.
Yeah. I'm guessing at some point you'll have to maybe increase probably your planning for that. But again, we'll see what happens. It's always kind of up to one company to kind of really see what's happening out there. So we'll see how that all plays out, I guess.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right. Well, then maybe final question, a wrap up for you guys. Looking ahead a little bit, you kind of mentioned an interesting thing earlier about the fact that you're seeing a lot of companies like Uber, for instance, purchasing devices from you guys. The IoT market obviously is a big growing market as well. I guess as you look at, kind of out ahead, beyond just the traditional iPhone upgrade cycle, I mean, what are you seeing out there in terms of some interesting dynamics or different markets that you're seeing out there that are kind of blossoming out there for you guys to kind of tackle?
The first one, Dan, is insurance.
Okay.
Because these devices are getting so expensive, somewhere in the $560 range up to $1,000 in high-end devices, more people are focused on insurance, getting their devices insured, because it's a device that we all depend on pretty significantly. So if you drop the device, and if you're without a device for 2 days or 3 days,
for 2 hours, what are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Although there are times when we wish these devices, right? But so people are insurance is a fast growing business, and so we are seeing that a lot of the devices are being taken back for consumption by fulfilling the insurance needs and claims that people are putting into the insurance stuff. Same thing with warranties as well. There are these devices do tend to get damaged. They're getting bigger. The glasses tend to break easily, so the warranty issues, and they're getting more complex. So every so often you'll have a function that is not working. So insurance and warranty is playing a pretty big role. We are also seeing, so as a result, the bring back is going to be really high. Mm-hmm. Uber, they don't purchase directly from us. They actually work directly with the carrier with whom they have contracted with. And we are seeing that increasingly more because they're making a used device available to their drivers. Mm-hmm. So as a result of that, the gig economy is consuming quite a bit. And we are also seeing that there are smaller companies that are coming into play with IoT applications, yeah. Whether that is a used device with a piece of software that they can supply to do home monitoring, to even cute applications like, who was the last person who didn't fill up a coffee pot? And, having a used phone sitting there and taking the phone, because people are getting creative because these environments are getting easier to program, and connecting something like that, especially in a smaller office environment where they can have a little bit more fun with applications like that. We are also seeing that increasingly more customers are relying on the intelligence that we have, the analytics that we have to determine trends in consumer behavior. When do people want to upgrade? What are the prices that are available globally for these devices? And using that as a mechanism to set their buyback price, whether they're setting it too high or too low, or should they be offering a lower price or offering a higher price so that they can procure these devices because there's a big demand out there and we can actually get a higher price for them when they sell it. So we are seeing that there's a big demand for that across the board from our carrier customers, our OEM customers, as well as certain financial planning companies who are actually using this to do their own forecasting around whether it's something associated with OEM stock, mm-hmm. or how they see that certain carriers trends will happen.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Definitely a lot of, like you said, a lot of interesting analytics. I'm sure you guys are kind of gleaning from the market out there. And it's, again, it's a market that seems to just be expanding all the time too. So I'm guessing for you guys, a lot happening. And I'm guessing over the next few years, a lot of extra growth for you guys too. So it's interesting market.
And the CPO market is another one that we are seeing that is taking up. I mean, if you go to, Best Buy, Walmart, any of the websites, you'll see that CPO has become a big part of how they actually sell to their customers, because it's a viable alternative, especially with families having younger children starting to own mobile phone, a certified pre-owned device gives them the comfort that it is pre-owned, but it's certified by the manufacturer. And you can see the similarities with the auto industry.
Oh, sure. Yeah, exactly. That's a big part of it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think people are becoming more comfortable with that too, because I think the automotive industry has done such a good job of kind of pushing out their message for CPO stuff that it does seem like it trickles down pretty well to almost everything that's out there. So
yeah, and the margins are higher in those certified pre-owned devices and certified pre-owned automobiles as well.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense there. Well, great. Well, Bijou, we definitely appreciate the insight. Obviously, a lot happened there at Hyla Mobile. It's good to catch up with you guys, get some insight on what's going on in the market. So we definitely appreciate the time and insights in. And hopefully we can touch base again soon, maybe later in the year as things kind of ramp up for you guys leading into the next holiday season. We can maybe touch base again and see what's happening out there. Well, thanks for watching this week's show, and make sure to check out our next carrier app when we are scheduled to speak with Sprint to get an update on the carrier's LTE and 5G plans. Thanks for watching.